Welcome back from the networking break, everyone. And yeah, really excited to announce our keynote discussion here on the essence of entrepreneurship with David S. Rose. David's the founder of Gust, the platform. It's actually one of our key sponsors for the event. You can check out their booth in the booth tab after as well. Serving both sides of the market, entrepreneurs that are looking for the right resources to scale their business, even launch their business with Gust Launch, and the investor side to source deals, have applications for your angel groups and investment groups, and really, connect everybody there, including his other foundation, or being a founder of the New York Angel Groups himself, and having experience working with and investing in entrepreneurs globally. And yeah, super excited to have you as our keynote speaker today. Got started reading your book, Angel Investing. Definitely highly recommended for everybody in the audience as well. And I'm going to hand it over to you to kick things off and, give us the real insights on what the essence of entrepreneurship is.
Great. Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Gust has been doing Venture Forward conferences now for several years, and venturing is the name of the game. And if you're in venture, you want to go forward. So this is really important for all of us. And the topic of the keynote today is the essence of entrepreneurship. And that's what underlies everything that all of us are doing, whether we are investors who are investing in startups, or more importantly, the founders who are founding and starting startups. We are all about entrepreneurship. And so the question today is, what is entrepreneurship? Where does it come from? What does it mean? And the answer is, it starts with the root word of entrepreneur. And so what is an entrepreneur? Well, if you go to the dictionary and look for entrepreneur, you will find the following definition. An entrepreneur is a person, and right there, it's a person. An entrepreneur is not a company, it's not a government, it's not an organization, it's not an association. Entrepreneurship comes down to somebody doing something, a person doing it. So what does this person do? Well, this person organizes and operates a business. Okay, organizing and operating, two different things, both of which are important. You can organize something, you can be a creative visionary, you can be a founder, and then you can turn around and stop it and do something else. That's fine. Or you can run a business, run a startup, be a full-time CEO, manager, which is great, but not founding it. Tim Cook, for example, is the head of the most successful company in the world and is a consummate operator, but he didn't found it. So Tim Cook is not an entrepreneur. By the same token, somebody like Pierre Omidyar, wonderful guy who's a product manager at Apple, founded a company called eBay and realized that he was not the person to run it. So he brought in professional managers, Meg Whitman and a CEO, and then went off to do his charitable stuff, which is really great. So he may be an investor, he may be a philanthropist, but not an entrepreneur in that sense. So an entrepreneur is a person who organizes and operates. Okay, interesting. What do you organize and operate? Well, you organize and operate a business or businesses, one or more businesses. You don't have to have multiple businesses, but once you get into this organizing and operating stuff, it turns out that most entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. They do one after another or even several simultaneously, because that's what entrepreneurs do. They do businesses. Okay, person who organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal. We're not normal. We're greater than normal. We are abnormal. There's no such thing as a normal entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs are inherently abnormal people. You know that. We know that. If you're listening to this Venture Forward Summit, you know that we are abnormal. But we're greater than normal what? We're taking on voluntarily greater than normal financial risks to do so. And not just financial risks, psychic risks, familial risks. Being an entrepreneur is a very, very risky endeavor. And being an entrepreneur takes cash. It takes money. If you don't put your own money into your business, then nobody else is going to invest in you. So you have to take on financial risk of your own money and then other people's money over there. So that's how the dictionary defines an entrepreneur. right? Well, what else do you have to have? What kind of skills do you have to be an entrepreneur? Well, if you're Apple Computer or you're General Motors or you're some mega giant company with millions of employees or hundreds of thousands of employees, different people do different kinds of things. But if you are a founder, an entrepreneur starting your own business, you are doing everything. You are chief cook and bottle washer, and you have to have all of the various skills that are necessary to get the company started before others can come in and specialize. So what are those skills? Well, people management. You got to get a team, hire a team, convince a team to work for you for free, find partners. You've got to manage your entire team to the goal because you are the one who is organizing and operating the business. You have to be able to understand the market you're in. Is what you're doing something that people will pay for? You have to be a market analyst. You got to be able to produce and create whatever you're doing, whether that production involves, software engineering or product design or consulting services. You have to be able to produce the thing that you're selling. You've got to be able to operate the business because businesses don't operate themselves. And many people with great ideas can't get out of a shower rain on an ongoing basis. You got to manage the business financially, getting the money, raising the funds, borrowing the funds, putting in your own money, being very careful about where every dollar goes because cash is king. You then, once you have your product out there, you've got to sell it and market it. So you're the initial VP of sales, VP of marketing, chief marketing officer. You're everything when you start this company. You have to deal with financing, which is raising the money to make this whole thing work. And then something that is often not spoken about in entrepreneurship, but is really important. You have to figure out a way to handle stress in your life because being an entrepreneur is the most stressful thing in the world. I mean, it's more stressful than jumping off of buildings. It's more stressful than being an air traffic controller. It's starting a company and it's incredible stress, which we'll talk about a little more as we go forward. So when investors look at you, they're saying, okay, are you the person I'm going to back? Well, these are the various things that you need to have in there. But what do investors look for? Well, you know what? The first thing investors look for, and if you've seen my lectures on YouTube and been in any of my classes, you'll know how important this is. The number one most important thing investors look for in a founder is integrity. You've got to be trustworthy, totally trustworthy, no fake it till you make it, no cutting corners, because you may get a short-term advantage. You may be able to beat somebody else for a contract if you cheat or shade the truth. But long-term, the company's not going to survive because the number one thing investors look for is integrity. What else? Well, you have to have the drive, the passion for the business that you're creating. Because there is so much bad stuff that'll fall on your head. If you are not passionate about changing the world and doing what you're doing, you have no hope of making this a success. You need to have experience in starting a company. And if you don't have experience in starting a company, which no first-time founders have because it's your first time, definitionally, are there other kinds of life experiences, starting a team, starting a volunteer program for your church or synagogue or mosque? Is it, what have you done to help get people together in service of a goal? So that kind of experience is what we look for. If you don't have it, we may take a risk on you, but anything you can point to that shows you've got that experience is great. Well, knowledge is another word for domain expertise. Do you know what the hell you're talking about? If you're telling me that you're going to come in and change the world with a new type of women's shoe, have you ever designed a shoe? Worn a women's shoe? Sold a women's shoe? Do you know anything about women's shoes? I don't. So I'd be a really rotten person to run a women's shoe business. So the domain expertise and knowledge of what you're doing is really important. And then, like to that previous slide about all the things you need to do, you need to have the skills to get this company off the ground. And initially, you're the only employer, maybe you and a co-founder. But then as the company grows and becomes successful, you have to take just enough of the skills you had to get started, and you now have to bring in another team, the team behind you, to differentiate and specialize in these things. That means you've got to be a leader. What is leadership? Sort of indefinable, but when I am looking at somebody, I'm saying, can I imagine working for this person as a leader? Really, really important, because the entrepreneur is the leader of this merry band that's pulling this out. And one of the ways that you convince people that you're prepared to be a leader is, are you committed to this thing? You have to be totally committed. This is an all-in operation. You can't start a business in your spare time out of a pocket. Oh yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. No, if you are going to be in a business that is investable, for me as an investor, you have to be totally and fully committed to doing that. And one of the things that helps you drive you to that level of commitment is the vision. Do you have the long-term vision to see that this is truly going to change the world? That vision is, I want to see somebody who is looking bigger, not just here now, but looking to the skies. At the same time, if you have this great vision, I want to know that you can actually pull it off. And that means being realistic. So do you have a sense of realism? Do you know who your first customer is and your second and your third over there? Okay. The final thing we look for is, call it flexibility or coachability. I want you to listen to me. I'm not investing to run your business, but I am somebody who's got a lot of experience in investing in businesses and running my own businesses and starting businesses. So I'm not challenging your whole thing. I'm not telling you what to do. But I do want you to keep an open ear, listen to what I'm saying, understand it, and then go do what you think is right. All right. So that's what we look for in funding an entrepreneur. So now you're an entrepreneur. You maybe have gotten some angel investing, or you're trying to get some angel investment. You're starting a company. You're dealing with your co-founders. What is it like to be an entrepreneur? And this is something that may not be obvious on the surface. I mean, if you have already started a company, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you haven't yet started a company and you're here at the conference thinking about what is it like to be a founder, well, let me tell you what the life of an entrepreneur is like. It's work. It's a lot of work. You can't do this. Not a part-time thing. This isn't a vacation. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I have not taken a vacation in 12 years. Now, I'm a little crazy, a lot crazy. That shouldn't be your role model. Please do what I say, not what I do. Take a vacation, take weeks of vacation every year, but it's work, a lot of hard work. It's really challenging. This is going to stress and strain every fiber of your being, because nobody is born with all of these skills to do something in this completely open new universe. You will be confused. Everybody's confused. Everybody starts with their first company somewhere, and because you're creating something that does not exist, there's no roadmap. I mean, there are roadmaps of similar kinds of companies. There are books like the ones I've written, which are great, but you will be confused. You'll spend half your life in confusion, because that's what it's all about. And you got to be dedicated to saying, okay, I'm going to get through this confusion. There is something at the other end that's worth doing, that's worth taking the risk. And in entrepreneurial life, as we discussed before, is full of risk. The majority of startups fail. You have to be able to persevere and just plod and stick through it, not even plod, run, charge into it to try and get past all of the things that are in your way. And when you're doing that, when you're running through, there is a sense of exhilaration in startup world that is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I mean, I haven't experienced ski jumping, and maybe if I was a ski jumper, I would experience that same kind of exhilaration as I go flying off into the ether. But that's sort of what it's like being an entrepreneur. You have that sense of exhilaration. But on the other hand, because nothing ever goes right, there will be agony. There was a movie about Michelangelo many years ago called The Agony and the Ecstasy, and that sort of defines the entrepreneurial life. But once you manage to get past this and get something on the board, get a company founded with customers who are buying your thing, the sense of accomplishment that you have is palpable. I mean, you've hatched an egg. You're a chicken. I mean, you've created something, created new life in the form of this company, which is really critical. On the other hand, fishing is not defined as catching fish. Fishing is defined as trying to catch fish. You can spend an entire day fishing and not catch a fish. Similarly, you can spend an entire year or 10 years being an entrepreneur trying to start a company, and the company fails. And that sucks, and it's not good. But you know what? That doesn't mean you're a bad entrepreneur. And that doesn't mean you weren't an entrepreneur. Because entrepreneurship is trying to start a company and doing all the work involved with it over there. And doing this requires an immense amount of sacrifice. Entrepreneurs, as I've often pointed out, are the only unprotected class. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There is for your employees. There is for anybody you deal with. There should be for your family. But for you as an entrepreneur, no work-life balance. The sacrifices you will make, particularly family sacrifices, can be really, really tough. That's the biggest challenge for founders. On the other hand, you have, because you are the founder and you're in charge, a sense of control. The buck stops with you. This is not working for the man or anybody else. This is working for yourself, and you are deciding what to do. Nobody's going to get you up in the morning and tell you, hey, you got to go to work now. You have to do it yourself. So you have an immense sense of control because your life is in your hands. The flip side of that, however, is a total feeling of powerlessness because you were like a cork bobbing on the ocean. All these forces outside of your control, market forces, competitive stuff, the war in Ukraine, whether the interest rates go up, these will fundamentally affect what you're doing, but are outside of your control. So you feel completely powerless, and that often leads to terror because talking about, I imagine, crossing the World Trade Center when it existed on a rope like Philippe Petit, it's a high wire act, and the sheer terror that is involved in leading an enterprise when you have no idea what you're doing in a market that you don't control can be really challenging. And not only that, it's lonely at the top. Heavy lies the head that wears the crown, and the equivalent of that is for the entrepreneur. Heavy lies the head that it's the CEO of this startup because there's nobody you can talk to. And that's why groups like the Founder Institute and Accelerator programs and EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, gives you a chance to commune with other peers on an ongoing basis. But at the end of the day, if these sound like contradictory things, they're totally contradictory. It's challenging, it's tough, it's nasty, it's gnarly. But if you do it, whether or not the business succeeds, particularly business succeeds, it's great. But even if it doesn't, if you have run the full distance at your full speed and done everything you can, there is an extraordinary sense of satisfaction that comes from being an entrepreneur. And that's because entrepreneurs think differently. So if you want to know the essence of entrepreneurship, let's quickly run through. Let me give you an example of how entrepreneurs think and non-entrepreneurs think. Let us posit, for example, that there is this goal you're trying to get to. You want to be the biggest X, you want to develop Y to your customers, but let's say that it's this ring, and that's the ring that you're trying for over there. The only challenge with this goal is that there happens to be a mountain between you and the ring. So what happens? Well, let's take a normal, ordinary person. A normal, ordinary person says, oh, I want the ring over there, but there's a mountain in the middle. The mountain's stopping me. I can't get there. Oh, well. And so that's what most normal people do. But entrepreneurial people, people who are self-starters, people who are not deterred by little things like mountains in there, well, those people approach it differently. Those people say, okay, I want that ring. There's a mountain in the middle. Well, I can't get there. Maybe I can climb up the mountain. Or maybe I'll take the long way around and slog and walk around the mountain. Or maybe even I'll get some more elves and hobbits to join me, and we will tunnel through the mountain to get there. And they will often give that a try. But you know what? That can sometimes work, and many times it does work, but it's really tough and it's really gnarly. And that's typically the way to get around the mountain and get through the mountain. But it's not creating new things. And so those people are self-starters. They're great. They can often be wonderful parts of your entrepreneurial team, but they're not entrepreneurs. So how does an entrepreneur approach this? Well, an entrepreneur says, hello, there's this ring. Let me look around. There's a mountain over there. Well, tell you what if that mountain wasn't there? What if I could just walk over to that ring? Well, okay, great. So let's get rid of the mountain, and let's envision this whole new world. I'm going to change the world. So in this world that I live in, there is no mountain. Whether you call it the reality distortion field or I'm changing my environment to make it work, as if there's no mountain there, then I can just walk right across and pick up the ring. And so what entrepreneurs do is they change the world around them to fit what their vision of where things are trying to go is, rather than try and beat their head against a wall and do the obvious thing that most people think about. And so if that sounds like the way you think, then welcome to entrepreneurship. If you're curious about how that thinking works and how those entrepreneurs work, there's a really interesting group called the Society for Effectuation. Their website is effectuation.org, and they go into great detail about this. It's coming out of the University of Virginia, about how entrepreneurs think and differently from everybody else out there. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you're curious about the mindset of an entrepreneur, which is different from anybody else's mindset. Okay, if that's what we do, what is it like to start a startup? There's a wonderful presentation that was done, probably a decade ago, by Tara Hunt, a Canadian Canadian entrepreneur whose handle is @MissRogue. You can find the entire presentation on slideshare.net, but she's given me permission to steal some of her slides because I just think they are so perfectly appropriate for this question of what is entrepreneurship. And her title of her presentation is, "Say you want to do a startup, eh?" She's Canadian. And so here are some abstracted slides from that presentation. Startups are hard. Did I mention that previously? Startups are really hard. In fact, if you are a startup founder, you know that startups are really fucking hard. They are heartbreaking. They are soul crushing. And part of the problem with doing this is here you have these heartbreaking, soul-crushing things, and you pick up the papers and you look at the blogs and you look at stuff online and you see all these movies about, Adam Newman and Elizabeth Holmes and everybody else, and you see all the covers of magazines. These people, it made $60 billion and they're 18 years old and whatever out there. And so you look at yourself, you look in the mirror and you want to slap yourself and you say, well, they can do it. Why can't I do it? Well, you know what? That's not reality. That's not the way the world works. It's not like they're paid actors doing this. So yes, there are one or two people, but it's like not every kid who plays pickup basketball on a lot can be LeBron James, right? Or Michael Jordan. There are Michael Jordan exists, so you can say he's real in that sense, but you are not Michael Jordan. And no matter how much you play on that corner basketball court, you're not going to be Michael Jordan over there, right? And so even if you do everything right, still the fact is that even a good idea, good execution, good timing, perseverance, and as she wrote, balls of steel, have a chance of winning, right? Because this is not the slam dunk, and things outside your control can take over. So you have to have everything line up to do that. As an angel investor, when we invest in companies, we do the best we can to pick the very best companies to invest in. And angels typically invest in only 2.5% of the companies they see. And of those companies, you know what? 9 out of 10 don't make it. 1 out of 10 becomes the unicorn. And the fact is, for everybody, for the 1 out of 10 plus the other 9, you wake up in a puddle of your own sweat several nights a week because you realize you are completely fucked. That has happened to me throughout my entire existence, again and again and again. And so if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, the question for you is, are you ready to make the ultimate sacrifice? Because if you're not, there's only one answer to this one, right? If you're not, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. So the rhetorical question that Tara asks is, so why are we doing this again? Fuck if I know. But and here's where she comes out, and here's where I come out. And if you've started a company, it's probably where you come out. Here I am. I can't imagine doing anything else. It's unhealthy, but it's a beautifully necessary obsession. And that is the essence of entrepreneurship. And so when we have events like here at Venture Forward and Prepare for BC and accelerator programs and all the stuff we're doing with Gust Launch on our platform there, the goal is to help people express their inner entrepreneur, help you be as successful as you can, effectively to move people on this entrepreneurial spectrum, because there is a spectrum of entrepreneurship, and whether it's genetic, psychotic, psychiatric, we're not quite sure about all this stuff yet. But what we do know is there are some people who never in a million years would start anything. They don't want to take the risk. They don't have an idea for innovation. They don't want to go charging off down untrodden paths. At the other end of the spectrum, you got people who, toss out the parachute and let's just go do it, because that's what we do, start a million companies out there. In reality, most people are somewhere in the middle. And the goal for all of these programs is to help move you along the spectrum. If you're somebody who would never, ever consider a startup, and you would figure your kids are dead if they became startup founders over there, the goal is to help you understand that this isn't totally crazy, that there is a method to the madness and that they work. And so at least get you to one level up so you might accept a partner who is an entrepreneur. If you're somebody who is, fearful about entrepreneurship, but you're sort of curious, the goal for events like this and for programs like Gust Launch and for accelerator programs and the like is to help move you to a point where maybe you have the potential to work in an entrepreneurial company. And if you are the kind of person who's a potential entrepreneur, our goal is to provide readiness, to make you ready to start the new company, and ultimately give you the tools you need to become that entrepreneur. And if you are this 1 out of 100 people who is a natural entrepreneur, who is that born crazy person out there, the goal for all of these programs and all these conferences and all of my books and all these tools is to help you go to the moon, express that, and actually be as successful as you possibly can. Because we entrepreneurial types, we are the crazy ones.
Here's for the crazy ones. The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Thank you very much. I hope you found this interesting and either scary or inspiring, depending on where you were going. We have, I think, a couple of minutes left. So if you want to use the Q&A function here on the right side of your screen, I'm happy to take questions and see if we can help with some answers here. So feel free either in the session chat. Oh, here we go. You have it in the session chat. Okay. So yeah, let's use that instead of Q&A. Put your questions for me in the chat session for this session, and let me try and answer them. So hold on a second. Come back to you over here. All right. Okay, well, clearly we have a bunch of entrepreneurs who are in this session right now, and you're all seconding these things. For those of you who are not entrepreneurs, you probably are, listen to what I just said and think that we are all completely nuts, and we are, because that's what this is all about. And you do it over and over again, as Karen pointed out, and Jody and all the others. And so we are rational in our own universe. We are not rational necessarily as the world perceives it. And so I'm not sure, Scott, that there is a traumatic brain injury involved, but it really is, as many of us have been pointing out here. We can't imagine doing anything else because that's just the way we are wired. And if you look in the comments here, look in the session chat, you will see everybody basically saying the same thing, which is exactly what I just said, what Tara said, and what you had that great line, that great commercial read by Richard Dreyfuss, by the way, for the Steve Jobs note over there. Maureen is asking, what is the first step to start a startup? We have another one from Francisco over here as well. What's the starting point to become an entrepreneur? In all of these things, in all of entrepreneurship, the first thing, if you think about everything I just told you, do something. Start something. And it sounds crazy. Well, where's the instruction? Well, I wrote the instruction book. It's called The Startup Checklist, 25 Steps to a Scalable High Growth Business. Available on Amazon and Kindle and Nook and audiobook, where I actually read it to you, and it's available on hardcover. And that's a great way. So if you're looking for the specific steps to start a company, particularly in the U.S., but also internationally, get my book, The Startup Checklist, which actually walks you through all of this kind of stuff. But the answer is, once you start doing something, the essence of a lean startup, by the way, is you get something and you see how the market reacts, and then you fine tune it, you monitor it, you adjust, and you fix it. And so therefore, getting your business started in whichever way you can, if something isn't working, okay, stop that, but change it to something else. But if you never get started, you'll never be able to get a business going at all. And so in terms of, Steve is asking about groups for like-minded entrepreneurs. If your business is sort of successful, if you're at $1 million a year in revenue, there's a wonderful global organization called EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, that you can belong to. They also have EO Accelerator for younger businesses, which is a program that sort of puts you in the EO universe that I would strongly suggest you get involved with as well. There are regional groups in every major city that are places for entrepreneurs to get together. There are meetups, there are tech meetups, accelerator programs, lots of online sessions like this to help and support you. So I wish you, everybody, the best of luck with your entrepreneurial careers. This is a wonderful and challenging and exciting venture that you are involved in, as we've seen from all the folks in the chat. It is crazy making, and all the stuff I was saying and all the stuff that Tara was saying about insanity is true, is real, but we are entrepreneurs and we simply can't imagine doing anything else. So thank you and have a wonderful rest of the event. Back to you, Jason.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, amazing presentation. As you saw in the chat, everybody really, really relates and was inspired by everything you said. And yeah, appreciate you taking the time and joining us here today. And yeah, everybody that came out, we're going to be going back to 2 tracks from here. So there'll be a pitch stage coming up, and from our top 21 startups of 2021, and also an intro to accelerators and incubator stage, and what you need to what you need to know to get involved in either of those categories. So yeah, you can go to the agenda, choose which stage you want to go to next, and we'll see you there. Thanks again, David.
My pleasure.